My name is Elaine Murphy, and the first sign that my place in my son's life had quietly slipped away arrived in cream-colored cardstock, the lettering embossed in gold. It came on a Tuesday in March, tucked between a water bill and a grocery store circular. I opened it casually, expecting another real estate flyer, but the envelope felt deliberate, thick, textured, expensive. Mr. and Mrs. Jason Murphy request the honor of your presence. I had to read it twice before it sank in. My son was getting married. And this was how I found out. No phone call, no lunch, no personal announcement, just a formal card, as if I were a distant relative they remembered only out of obligation. I stood in my kitchen, the invitation resting beside a stack of overdue bills. Jason was 28 now, living in a downtown high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows and valet parking. I'd only seen it once briefly. He worked in tech, earning in a month what I made in 6, sitting in a cubicle that smelled like old carpet. Barbara, his fiancée, was polished and poised. I'd met her twice, once at brunch, once at Christmas. She had looked around my apartment as if poverty were contagious, afraid to touch anything. The wedding was set for June 15th at the Magnolia Hill Country Club. Black tie optional, it said in tiny print. I didn't own anything that qualified. My best dress was navy, 5 years old, bought on clearance for Jason's college graduation. Still, I held the card carefully, tracing the gold letters, my heart swinging between pride and rejection. I was invited, technically, but I had never felt more like a stranger in my own son's life. That evening, I called him. He answered on the third ring. "Hey, Mom," he said, his voice distant, distracted, like he was scrolling through emails while I spoke. "I got the invitation," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "Oh, good," he replied. No warmth, just acknowledgement. "Congratulations, honey. Barbara seems lovely." "Yeah, she is," he said. "Then, listen about the wedding." "I'd love to help," I interrupted, already imagining myself at the kitchen table with a pen in hand. "I know planning a wedding is overwhelming. Maybe I could help with the flowers or taste the cake." His tone sharpened. "Mom, stop. It's all taken care of. Barbara's parents are handling everything. I'm not talking about money, Jason. I mean being part of it. A mother-son dance, helping pick the bouquets, being involved." "We've already picked all of that," he sighed. "Look, just show up. Okay? Something nice, but not too conservative. Barbara's family is kind of traditional." "Something nice, but not too me," I said, keeping my voice steady even as the familiar ache climbed in my chest. I wouldn't want to embarrass anyone. "It's not about embarrassment," he muttered, then quickly added, "Never mind. I've got to go. Barbara's making dinner." The call ended, leaving only the soft hum of the refrigerator and the weight of disappointment. I stared at the phone, then at the invitation on the table. Black tie optional. Optional, perhaps, but so was I. After that call, I made a decision. If I was going to be an outsider at my own son's wedding, I would still walk in with my head held high. For the next 3 months, I saved every dollar I could. I skipped meals, walked to work instead of taking the bus, canceled my cable subscription. I clipped coupons with precision, counted every penny, said no to every small indulgence. By May, I'd scraped together enough for a new dress. Not just any dress, but one that made me feel like I belonged among country club members and designer labels. I chose a deep emerald gown, simple but elegant, from a department store I'd never dared to enter. It cost more than I'd spent on myself in years. I bought matching shoes, low heels with silver accents, and had my graying hair professionally styled for the first time in over a decade. Soft curls, subtle highlights. When the stylist turned me to the mirror, I hardly recognized myself. For a moment, I let myself imagine Jason's reaction. Maybe a flicker of surprise. Maybe a compliment. Maybe a proud introduction to his in-laws. That morning, standing in front of my bathroom mirror, I touched the neckline of my dress and breathed deeply. The woman staring back wasn't just a mother. She was dignified, present whole. No matter what happened that day, I would walk into that wedding knowing I had done everything I could, not for Jason but for myself. Sometimes dignity is the only gift you can give when others forget your worth. The country club was exactly as I had imagined. Pristine grounds, manicured lawns, a shimmering lake in the distance. Luxury cars lined the circular drive, BMWs, Mercedes, even a few Teslas. I had washed my 15-year-old Honda Civic the day before, hoping it might blend in. It didn't. Inside, the lobby gleamed with marble floors and crystal chandeliers. Guests mingled in designer dresses and tailored tuxedos, their laughter echoing off the vaulted ceilings. I walked slowly, heels tapping against the polished floor, trying not to feel painfully out of place. I spotted Jason near the staircase, resplendent in a black tuxedo. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his smile wide as he laughed at something Barbara's father had said. Barbara stood beside him, radiant in a gown straight out of a bridal magazine. They looked like they belonged on a cover. I approached, heart tight in my chest. Jason's eyes found mine, and his smile faltered, not with warmth, not with recognition, but with something that looked unnervingly like dread. "Mom," he said, voice carefully neutral. "You look so handsome," I said, reaching to straighten his bow tie like I had 100 times when he was younger. He stepped back slightly, breaking the contact. "Thanks. You look nice." There was a pause, just long enough to sting. Barbara's father extended a hand. "You must be Jason's mother, Tom Whitmore," he said. "Elaine Murphy," I replied, shaking his hand. "Congratulations on gaining such a wonderful son-in-law." "Indeed," he said, smiling politely before turning back to Jason. I stood a moment longer, then quietly stepped away. Just like that, I faded into the background of my son's wedding, unnoticed. The reception hall was a masterpiece of understated luxury. White linens draped the round tables, crystal stemware sparkled under chandeliers, and towering floral arrangements filled the air with the scent of roses and eucalyptus. Each table had a name card. I found mine at table 8, tucked in the farthest corner, right beside the swinging doors to the kitchen. The other guests at my table were strangers, an elderly woman with a hearing aid, a nervous couple in formal wear, and several empty chairs that would remain unfilled. We were clearly afterthoughts. At the front, the head table held Jason and Barbara, surrounded by her family. Table 1 was her family's closest friends. Table 2 held Jason's college buddies and their wives. Table 3, Barbara's sorority sisters. It was a diagram of proximity to importance. I sat quietly, trying not to feel humiliated. A woman in her 60s approached, looking uncertain. "Are you Jason's mother?" she asked with a gentle smile. "I'm Margaret, Barbara's great-aunt. Would you mind if I sat with you?" "I don't know anyone else here," I admitted. "Of course," she said, a friendly face in the crowd. She sat beside me and leaned in. "All this is very beautiful, but not really my world." "You're right," I said, smiling faintly. "But it's Jason's day. That's what matters." As the cocktail hour dragged on, I watched Jason work the room like a seasoned politician, shaking hands, sharing laughter, posing for photos, making time for everyone except me. I told myself he'd come over soon, that he was caught up in the moment, that he was saving the best for last. But with each passing minute, a hollow ache opened inside me, slow, wide, familiar, the same old pain of being forgotten by the one I loved most. Dinner began with practiced elegance. Waiters in crisp uniforms moved like clockwork, serving the head table first, then tables 1 through 7. At ours, we waited patiently. Margaret received her plate first, lukewarm but edible. Then came the elderly woman's, then the nervous couple's. And then nothing. A young server approached, flustered. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. There was a mix-up in the kitchen. Your meal will be out in a few minutes." 20 minutes passed, then 30. Around us, other guests finished their meals, raised glasses, laughed at inside jokes. I sat quietly, an empty plate before me, pride shrinking by the minute. Eventually, another server brought my plate. The salmon was cold, the asparagus limp, and the potatoes looked like they'd been scraped from someone else's plate and left under a heat lamp. Margaret glanced at it, whispering, That's inexcusable. But I smiled. It's fine. I'm just happy to be here. A lie, yes, but one I had long practiced. Halfway through the cold salmon, I heard Jason's voice echo across the room. He stood, preparing for his thank you speech. Before addressing the guests, he leaned toward Barbara, just loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Did you see? They finally brought my mom her food, he said with a smirk. She's used to eating what life leaves behind. She won't mind. I set down my fork. Barbara laughed, high and brittle, and a few others joined in, following her lead. My hands were steady, though something inside me cracked wide open. Margaret looked horrified. Did he just? I'm fine, I said again. But the words tasted like ashes in my mouth. Because that joke, that cruel, cutting joke, was also the truth. At least the truth of how he saw me. After dinner, the lights dimmed and the music swelled. Jason and Barbara stepped onto the dance floor for their first dance, gliding together like a picture-perfect couple in a movie scene. I watched from my corner, smiling politely, hands folded in my lap. My dress, my hair, my shoes, all chosen for a moment I had hoped would matter. Then came the parent dances. Barbara's father twirled her with ease, his movements polished and proud. Barbara's mother took Jason's hand next, swaying slowly, sentimentally. I waited. Surely my son would come for me. Surely he hadn't forgotten. I had imagined this moment countless times, even practiced a few steps alone in my tiny apartment, letting old music from my phone fill the silence. But as the evening wore on, more family joined in, cousins, uncles, friends, spinning and laughing under the golden lights. Jason never looked my way. No hand extended, no nod, no mother-son dance. He was too busy, too celebrated, too wrapped up in the life he had built, a life where I existed only on the margins. And I finally understood. I wasn't invited to participate. I was invited only to witness quietly from the shadows. Margaret leaned over. Are you all right, dear? I looked at the swirling laughter, the spinning gowns, the man who had once been my little boy, now dancing through a world with no room for me. For the first time all evening, I felt entirely clear. I'm perfect, I said. And for once, I meant it. I stood, smoothed my emerald dress one last time, and walked toward the exit. No one noticed, not Jason, not Barbara, not a single soul. Back home, the silence felt different, like something had finally settled. I hung my dress in the back of the closet, changed into jeans and a t-shirt, and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. And I began to write, not in anger, not in grief, but with a clarity I had never known before. Jason, I'm writing this while your wedding is still fresh in my mind, though I suspect the parts one remember will differ from what you choose to keep. Your comment about me, eating what life leaves behind, wasn't just cruel, it was honest. And that honesty gave me something I didn't expect. Perspective. You're right. I've spent years accepting leftovers, leftover time, attention, respect. I taught you, without meaning to, that it was acceptable to treat me as second best. I accepted scraps and called it love. But not anymore. Effective immediately, I'm ending all financial support. That includes the $500 monthly deposits you thought came from a trust fund. There is no trust fund. That was me, working overtime, skipping meals, delaying my own life, so you could build yours. I'm also canceling the credit card I opened in your name, which you've used for car repairs, flights, and vacations. I am selling the house, the one you assumed would someday be yours. It's worth about $340,000 in today's market. I'll use that money to travel, to rest, to live. You once asked why I never remarried. The truth, I was too busy being your mother to be anything else. I poured everything into raising you, thinking someday you'd love me, not just as a provider, but as a person. I was wrong. This isn't punishment. This isn't revenge. This is me finally choosing to matter to myself. I hope your marriage brings you joy. I hope you one day understand the difference between being loved and being respected. You'll always be my son, but I will no longer be your safety net. I read my email 3 times before hitting send at 3:47 a.m. No dramatic punctuation, no hidden messages, just the truth. By noon, Jason replied, "Mom, what the hell is this? Are you having a breakdown? I think you misunderstood what happened at the wedding. It was just a joke. Everyone was laughing, not just at you. You're being way too sensitive. Can we talk like adults? Selling the house is insane. That's my inheritance." Dad would roll over in his grave. "Barbara thinks you might be having a midlife crisis. She knows a therapist for women your age. Let's talk on Sunday. I'll come over." I didn't reply. By Friday, I had changed my phone number. Saturday brought a second email, shorter, sharper. "Mom, I've been calling for 2 days. Pick up your phone. We need to talk about this house before you do something stupid. I talked to a lawyer. You can't just cut me out of my inheritance. Call me back." I forwarded that one to my realtor with a short note. "Please expedite the listing process." By Tuesday morning, the house was on the market. By Thursday, we had 2 offers. I accepted the higher one, $115,000 over asking, cash, 30-day close. Sunday brought Jason's final message. "You win. Whatever point you're trying to make, congratulations. You've ruined our relationship and embarrassed me in front of Barbara's family. I hope it was worth it. Don't contact me again." I printed it and filed it in a folder labeled evidence. Not for court, just for memory. The closing was scheduled for July 20th. I put down deposits on a furnished apartment in Savannah and a month-long bed and breakfast in Vermont for the fall. For the first time in 30 years, I was making plans that didn't revolve around Jason's schedule, his needs, or his approval. The woman who raised him had done her job, and I was finally free to live. Savannah was warm when I arrived, not just in temperature, but in spirit. I rented a small apartment 4 blocks from the river on a quiet street, where people still nodded hello. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I took a part-time job at a local bookstore owned by a woman named Rita, who hired me on the spot after our 10-minute conversation. "You seem like someone who understands that books are more than merchandise," she said. And she was right. I spent my days surrounded by stories and my evenings walking along the water, eating simple meals, reading on a second-hand porch swing I'd picked up at a yard sale. For 3 months, I didn't hear from Jason. No call, no letter, no sign. Then one Thursday afternoon in October, Rita handed me a note. "Some man called looking for you," she said. "Said he was your son." He sounded desperate. I folded the message and tucked it into my pocket. 2 days later, Jason showed up in person. He looked smaller, thinner, dark circles under his eyes. His expensive shoes were scuffed. His voice cracked when he said my name. "Please," he whispered. "Can we talk?" "I get off work at 6, I said. "The cafe next door closes at 7. You have 1 hour. That evening, I sat across from him as he stumbled through an apology, words carefully chosen, rehearsed. "I miss you," he said. "I miss having a mother who believed in me." "I did believe in you," I answered. "But belief without boundaries isn't love. It's enablement." He asked how to fix it, how to start over. I told him he couldn't. Not because I hated him, but because I had already left. He just hadn't noticed until the benefits stopped. As I walked away from that cafe and into the soft Savannah night, I didn't look back. I had spent 30 years accepting leftovers. Now I was building a life where I set the table, and this time, I was choosing where I sat. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of the silent sacrifices so many make in the name of love, then let's talk about it. Have you ever given so much of yourself that there was nothing left? Elaine's journey isn't about revenge or anger. It's about reclaiming dignity, about finally saying enough. If you believe in boundaries, in second chances for yourself, not for those who use you, like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and leave a comment below. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge is simply choosing yourself.